I remember you going on these different talk shows saying this is going to crash, and people weren't listening to you. And they were like, oh, Peter Schiff doesn't know what he's talking about. And then it did crash, and then they listened to you. You're the only one that's saying it's going to crash again.
Well, they never really listened to me. They kind of tolerated me. Here's the
they had to because you were right.
The Fed blink in light of everything that's happening today, and we are off the lows of the session, but...
Yeah, well, Liz, I think regardless of what the Fed does on Wednesday,
well, does it
I think
blink?
the
Answer my
next
question
move
first.
after that is go. Yeah, I am. Regardless of what they do, the next thing they're going to do is cut rates. They're going back down to zero.
Real stimulus is QE4, which is going to be bigger than the first 3 rounds combined.
Wait, is that your prediction?
Oh, yes.
You say, okay, articulate it here.
Well, the Fed's going to go back to QE. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can to try to stop the bear market and to try to prevent the recession. But they are going to fail. They are going to make it worse this time. On Fox Business 2 days before the Fed's last rate hike. And I predicted at that time that that was the end of the cycle and that the very next move...
Despite what Powell was saying and the hints that the Fed was giving.
Oh, yeah. I said the next move would be a cut and that then they would return to quantitative easing. Both of those predictions have come true.
We've just created a massive amount of inflation. Quantitative easing is just a euphemism for inflation. That's what inflation is. Expanding the money supply, putting up money and buying government bonds is the definition of inflation. The Fed has been inflating like crazy. So to say that we see no dangers of inflation, why did he think the stock market went up? Why did the real estate market go up? Why did the bond market go up? Those are all prices. What made those prices rise? The inflation created by the central bank. I mean, they did that on purpose. So clearly inflation is a threat. And what's going to happen with inflation is the effects are going to move from the financial assets to the real economy, to food, to energy, to stuff like that. But the Fed doesn't see that.
What's your new prediction about the dollar?
Well, it's not really a new prediction, but maybe it's more timely. The dollar's not just going down, it is going to crash. You know, you mentioned the Dow being up, but priced in real money, gold and silver, the Dow is actually down. Urging our clients, and I would encourage everybody listening to Fox to get out of Dodge, like Gasparino was saying, but get out of Dodge with your portfolio and get out of dollars. You want to buy foreign stocks that derive their revenues outside the United States, so they don't earn U.S. dollars, they earn foreign currencies, and then they can return those appreciated foreign currencies to you in dividends so you can avoid the inflation tax. Forget about the payroll tax. The real tax that's going to clobber every American is inflation.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado, Man-Made Survival. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I really do appreciate it because today's video is pretty important because although we have talked about, the economy in the past, we have talked about the inflation in the past, I don't want to sound repetitive, but something important came out that I really think that I should share with you, along with some other information that, kind of put the pieces together, that is going to complement the main idea of this entire video. So I would really encourage you to stay all the way to the end, listen to this new information, even though it still has to do with the inflation and the aspects of the economy that we have heard many times from many people. But this one this information that I'm bringing you today proves my concept about the hyperinflation hitting us. And you should really prepare, because once you prepare for the hyperinflation to happen, things that come along that you didn't prepare for, such as the heat wave that, the West is experiencing, as along with Texas and some other states, that is already taken care of, even though you didn't prepare for it, because you prepare for something extreme like the economic collapse and there being hyperinflation. So that is the reason why I want to bring you this here today, and I want us to talk about it. So before I get into the headline, I want to remind you about the store, ManMadeSurvivalStore.com. You can go on there and find the things that you're going to need for your preparedness. And also what you're going to find in the front page of the website is the book that I'm giving away for free. which is Preppers Secrete Cache. Once you go on there, you click the link that's on the website for the store. It'll take you to another website where you can fill out the information. We'll send you the book absolutely free. All we need your help is with the shipping. The book retails for $24.99. The shipping is $9.99, so you are in fact getting it for free. So I would recommend that you get it, you read it, you get the information from it, and then you pass it along to somebody that you would think that would benefit from that book. All right. And we're trying to reach as many people as we can possibly reach, especially with this environment of hyperinflation or, severe inflation and, pandemics and volcanoes erupting and heat waves coming through and, the electrical grid in Texas and California almost falling apart again. So now people are going to start paying attention, and giving them a book like that is going to be very beneficial. All right. So the first headline that I have for you is really important because it really proves that the banks, for one, they know what they're doing. They know what's going on. They know the chatter that's being talked about in the background with the Federal Reserve and everybody else. They're going to have a pretty good freaking idea on when hyperinflation environment is going to be here. And I think that all the banks are getting set up for that time. So even though hyperinflation happens, there's people who are going to benefit greatly from it. And, if they're already rich, they're going to become even more rich. The pandemic proved that. Regular people who take the steps right now to set themselves up for a hyperinflation environment to happen, they will also come out. In the 1930s, when the Great Recession happened, there were several millionaires that came out of that just for the simple fact of looking at the stock market. There was this famous story that I kind of remember. This was from several years ago, of this woman who started trading the stock market, and she kind of could tell that there was about to be a financial crisis, and she bought the stocks that she knew would prosper during a recession, and she started buying and selling or something like that. This story is not 100% accurate, but it's something that I remember, to where she successfully became a millionaire just from looking at the things that were going to prosper during a depression. We go into hyperinflation, and Jamie Dimon is making sure that he is going to be set up the right way just in case hyperinflation does happen, or if high inflation, even if it doesn't turn to hyperinflation, does happen. All right, and this article comes from CNBC.com, and it reads, Jamie Dimon says JP Morgan is hoarding cash because very good chance inflation is here to stay. Jamie Dimon believes cash is king, at least for the time being. JP Morgan Chase has been effectively stockpiling cash rather than using it to buy treasuries or other investment because of the possibility higher inflation will force the Federal Reserve to boost interest rates. Dimon said Monday during a conference, the biggest U.S. bank by assets has positioned itself to benefit from rising interest rates, which will let it buy higher yield assets, he said. Quote, we have a lot of cash and capability, and we're going to be very patient because I think you have a very good chance inflation will be more than transitory, end quote, said Dimon, longtime JP Morgan CEO. Quote, if you look at our balance sheet, we have over $500 billion in cash. We've actually been effectively stockpiling more and more cash, waiting for opportunities to invest at higher rates. I do expect to see higher rates and more inflation, and we're prepared for that. Dimon waded into the ongoing debate of whether higher inflation is a result of temporary aspects of the reopening, like raw material shortages or supply chain issues, or if it could be more lasting. Fed officials have called for current spike in inflation transitory, meaning temporary and short-lived. But there are increasingly voices, including Deutsche Bank economists and hedge fund billionaires, who warn of consequences should the Fed ignore inflation. All right, so that one is very, very simple, okay? Pretty much what this JP Morgan CEO is saying is that they know inflation is going to stay here for a while. And it's not going to be just short-lived. It's going to be for a long time. And if the inflation gets to a certain point where people are going to start getting mad, especially companies, what the Fed is going to have to be forced to do is to raise interest rates in order for them to kind of like cool down the market. Because if the interest rates are higher, then people are not going to take out loans, you know, for houses, for businesses, for whatever it is. People will not take out the loans. So therefore, since there's not a lot of people taking out loans as compared to right now where interest rates are zero, you know, you can get a house very, very cheap on interest rates. Then when the interest rates go up, then it's going to cool everything down. It's going to put the brakes on the economy pretty much. You could say it's going to make people hurt, but it's going to be a way for the Fed to try to cool things down, which of course is not going to be successful because the US government has so much debt. All right. And if the government gets debt at higher rates of of interest, then when it comes time to make the payment, the U.S. government is not going to be able to. Therefore, it's going to default on its loans. All right. So the next article that I have for you actually is a video. Hedge fund manager Kyle Bass estimates U.S. inflation at 12%. This from Breitbart.com, and it has a very short video for it. Here it is.
The May producer price index coming in hotter than expected. Joining us right now to talk about this new inflation data and what it could mean for the markets and the Fed as the central bank kicks off its latest two-day meeting is Kyle Bass. He's founder and chief investment officer of Heyman Capital Management. And Kyle, what do you think? As somebody who's looking to invest in the market, what do these hotter numbers mean? What does that mean for the Fed?
I mean, first of all, Becky, I think it's when you look at the inflation numbers, these are chain-weighted inflation numbers. These are numbers that are designed to artificially be low. If you look at a non-chain-weighted index of inflation, we think it's running about 12%. And with short-term interest rates still at zero, that means people that have money in the bank or in their savings are losing, call it 5 to 12% of their purchasing power now annually. So we have 34% more money in the U.S. system than we had 14 months ago. Of course, we're going to have inflation, and it's going to be significant. And I think investors and savers, retirees really need to think about how to maintain the purchasing power of their capital. I think there are plenty of interesting places to put it, and some of them might not be in the market.
All right, so we have to look at the idea that inflation is not 3 to 6% as the Federal Reserve has said, but rather is 12 and plus. You know, when you look at individual things, you can see that inflation is really, really bad. You know, actually, somebody in the comment section for the previous video left a comment that pretty much showed the inflation. And let me pull it up here real quick because I really do thank you for leaving me that information on the comment section. Because, you know, all this stuff is really important, especially when you depend on those things. All right, so this one is from America First, and you can read it on the comment section. All right, and aluminum is up 70% from last year. Avocados, oh, no, it doesn't say. Bacon, $7 plus per pound in some locations. Beef up about 47% this year, 20% just in May. Bleach is up 70% in last year. Bread, 79% since 2020. And, you know, the list goes on. And these are things that you use each and every day. I'm going to go through the list without actually reading the percentage because, you know, that would take forever. But let's see. The last thing I read was bread. So canola oil, cars, or, you know, used cars, cereal, cheese, chicken broilers, chicken breast, chicken feed, chicken wings, Clorox, chocolate, clothes, coconut oil, coffee, computers, copper, corn, cosmetics, cotton, diapers, eggs, electricity, feminine hygiene products, fertilizer, and the list goes on and on and on and on. You know, I mean, thank you for taking the time to put these, you know, if you wrote it out, thank you. If you got it from some other place, then, you know, I thank those people for making out this really long list. And it says copyright by America First 2021. So I guess you wrote the entire thing. And again, thank you for that. But, you know, that just proves that everything has gone up more than we are being told. So therefore, the inflation could be a lot higher than what we actually think. Now, 12% sounds about right Because if it was 20% or more, we would really feel the pain on that. So, but since it's not that bad, we still have some wiggle room. We're going to be able to see that inflation is hurting people when they can no longer have luxuries. All right, they can no longer take vacations, they can no longer go to the movies, because they really have to think, all right, I have this much amount of money, everything's this expensive, what are the things that I need? All right, so that's why we have to pay attention. Now, the next article that I have for you is from Zero Hedge, and this is the one that I really need you to pay attention to, because this one proves what I've been saying this entire time about hyperinflation. Now the banks are talking about it. We have been early to the party. I've been talking about inflation and hyperinflation since I started this podcast about a year and a half ago. And the reason that I talk about it is because as preppers, we have to go to the extreme, right? Hyperinflation is extreme because people don't normally think about it. Since, last year and before, people never thought it would ever happen in the United States. The same thing as a pandemic, the same thing as lockdowns, the same thing as shortages, the same thing as all the things that we've have pretty much seen for the past 2 to 3 years. People never thought would happen, and yet they have. And this hyperinflation thing is another thing that will happen that people are not prepared for, and their bubble is going to be pricked, and it's going to be pretty devastating. But you are informed, which is a great thing, and you early to the party, so you can see, people freaking out a lot sooner than people coming late to the party. So if you have your preps in place, you're going to be better off than other people. Now, the previous podcast that I did where I showed, all 7 continents, or really 6 continents, on how the poorest people live compared to the United States, if you're going to fall somewhere in between that, your preps is going to help you with that. Because if you're not prepared, you're going to fall all the way to poverty. That's going to be very devastating, as we saw in Venezuela and other places. But your preps are going to make sure that you're closer to the rich side, or, better off side. This headline comes from Zero Hedge, and it says, Bank of America's new inflation meter shows transitory hyperinflation. A little over a month ago, Bank of America spooked even the most dovish elements on Wall Street and in the Mariner Eccles building, when the bank said that judging by the explosion of references to surging prices in Q1 earnings calls, the bank concluded that this pointing to, at the very least, transitory hyperinflation ahead. Yes, really. Inflation trends running hot as margins hit record highs. We noted during week 2 that mention of inflation quadrupled year over year, after last week mention have jumped nearly 800% year over year. On an absolute basis, mention skyrocketed the near record highs from 2011, pointing to, at the very least, transitory hyperinflation ahead. With that background behind us, Bank of America stated matter-of-factly that its meter is currently at an all-time high, which, however, is immediately spun as positive, as it suggests that there is significant scope for a pullback over the next year, which of course is true. It also suggests that prices, whether permanent or transitory, have never risen faster. In short, hyperinflation. All right, so again, that is really important because now they're actually, now this is the second bank who has actually, confessed, acknowledged that there's going to be hyperinflation in the future. So if they're freaking out about it now, or actually they're not freaking out about it. Let me correct that. They're making sure that the words that they're saying will not freak out everybody else. Internally, they have to be worrying about it, and they have to be making the steps, or taking the steps in case this happens. The CEO of JP Morgan pretty much showed that. So we have to look at these little details to put the picture together, to look at the bigger picture, to see what's going on. So you do have to worry about, you do have to prepare for a hyperinflation environment that may last not just several weeks. It could last several years. Remember, Venezuela has been in hyperinflation mode for at the very, very least 5 years. It depends on what you want to throw the timeline in. Some people say it has been 7 to 8 years. Others have said it is 6. It all depends on who you ask. The point is that they have been in hyperinflation for more than 1 year. And they have suffered through food, water, security, and energy, and all these other things. Venezuela does have products in their grocery stores. There's people who have, little stores. There is commerce being conducted every day. There's people who go for strolls just for fun. But that doesn't mean that everybody can afford everything that's there, okay? The hyperinflation environment has really shown that because we have hyperinflation, that doesn't mean that the government will fall apart automatically overnight, and then there's no rule of law out there. That is not what happens. Zimbabwe didn't fall apart. We don't have countries out there that are governmentless, if that's even a word. They still have a government structure. They still have a military. They still have a president, legislature and everything else. They're just very, very broke. The same thing can happen in the United States. Just because the United States falls apart, or, the economy falls apart, doesn't mean that it's going to dismantle and then, the entire United States, the lower 48, are going to become territories of something else. All right, so now that we're talking about hyperinflation, there is something that you have to think about that happened in Venezuela. And that was crime rising because, people, for one, were freaking out. Again, there's a period of time between the crap hits the fan and things start to settle down where everybody is getting used to their environment. That amount of time in between, that's when people freak out and, stupid thing happens. And you have to prepare pretty much for that period of time. And then, live out the rest of your life. But crime will go up. Gangs will come together and they will, go door to door pretty much collecting what they want to get. There's people within the prepper community who have said that they don't have to stock up on food and water because they understand that there's other people doing that. All they need is guns, and they're going to come in and take it from you if they feel like it. That is the reason why you have to have security. Now, this next headline that I have for you is from Zero Hedge. And I'm only going to give you the headline, but there's something that I really want to point out right after that, right? And this article says, entire Portland police raid response team resigns after officer indicted for breaking up Antifa riot. This is a note that I wrote for myself. It says, because of cops quitting and not having enough manpower, we can see the potential for a smooth transition from civil law to martial law. The next headline proves that. And I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Minneapolis has 100 National Guardsmen on standby as new gun evidence emerges in Winston Smith shooting. That's from foxnews.com. All right, so now let's put all of this together, okay? And this podcast is going to be, pretty short compared to what we're used to. But here's the point. The banks are going to freak out, right? Once this is common knowledge that hyperinflation is going to be throughout the United States, what is the first thing that's going to happen? All right, for one, they're going to close the banks. It's going to be holiday for the banks. Nobody's going to open, all right? And then there are going to be limits on people, on how much people can withdraw from the ATMs, because there's going to be a bank run. We saw that in Cyprus. We saw that in Zimbabwe. We saw that in Venezuela. We saw that in many other places throughout the world where they had the bank holiday. People were freaking out and they went for their savings because everything was inside the bank. Here's the thing that a lot of people do not understand. Even if the money is insured through the, what's it called? I blanked out on the name. But anyways, there's a program in the banks that will cover so much money. The thing about it is that they don't have enough money to cover everyone. Even though they're saying that there is money, they don't have it. All right? So who are the people who are they going to cover first? Of course, it's going to be the rich people that have the influence, right? And then, everything's going to trickle down to the people that will be lucky enough to be in line, and then it's going to be cut off at that point, and then it's gone. The other thing that's going to happen, or that could happen, is a bail-in. That means that the bank takes all of your money in your checkings, your savings accounts, CDs, everything else. They're gonna get it. They're gonna use it for them to pay off the debt that they have. in order for them to stay afloat. That is something that could happen, and it's something legal, something that became a legal practice after 2008. And if you don't believe me, you can look it up. But that is one of the things that can happen if the bank suddenly stops working. You know, if hyperinflation comes around, they will close down. There will be limits on how much you can withdraw. Not everybody's going to be covered by the, I still don't remember the name. And people are going to have their accounts drained if it comes to the point where the bank needs to use that money. All right, so then people are going to be pissed, but they're also going to be freaking out. After running through the bank, since they realize that they will not get any money, they will run to the grocery store. At the grocery store, they're going to try to get everything that they can. We saw this in Venezuela, all right? And the people who do not have the money to pay, they're going to start running out with things in their hands. And we're already seeing that in Portland. People are going into the CVS and other places where it's legal to steal up to $950 worth of product, all right? Once that person steals from that shop $950 and up, or $951 and up, then they can be arrested. But as long as they stay in $950 and below, they can take whatever they want. All right. So that same principle is going to take precedent once everybody storms the grocery stores. You know, if we thought that the Antifa and Black Lives Matter rioting and looting all these stores for the goods that were in it, because they were taking the opportunity. If you think that was bad, this is going to be a lot worse. And, in Venezuela, there's videos upon videos of people going to the grocery stores and, taking everything that they can. And I'm going to be editing this, the videos of people running through there so you can see it while I'm talking about all of this. But anyways, now let's go from there to the police being involved. Again, the government is not going to collapse. The government is not going to go anywhere. Venezuela's government is still there. The same dictator that got supposedly elected is still there. All right, he's still controlling the government. There was opposition, and there was people that was for the government. All right, and the people that were for the government, they were getting special privileges. The people that were against the government, they were being oppressed. Do you really think that's not going to happen here in the United States? Yes, it is. Depending on who's the president, when this hyperinflation starts, then that's when we're going to see. Let's say Donald Trump was still here and the hyperinflation happened. Then, of course, everybody on the left, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, other groups, whoever, they would go to the Capitol and they start rioting and doing their thing. But now that Joe Biden is there, more than likely you're going to see people on the right, 3%ers, Proud Boys, and all these other groups that they might go up there and actually do something that they didn't do on January 6th. So things can get out of hand very, very quickly. And now that police will not be working because, for one, they're not getting paid. They have to take care of the family if things get pretty dicey. And, things are going to get worse in the city as opposed to the countryside. And even though they can get pretty dangerous here too, there's more of an opportunity to defend your property than it is in the country, than trying to defend your 2-bedroom apartment on the 50th floor, whatever. And after that, if the local government sees that they cannot control the rioters and they cannot control the people looting the stores, pretty much the grocery stores like Walmart and others, then they're going to be compelled to get the National Guard or maybe even the Army to start rolling through the streets of America to start putting, some type of law and order. So we can see the transition from regular law, civil law, whatever, to martial law. And, lockdowns will come into place. Heavy surveillance will come into place. You can bet your bottom dollar that if the military becomes involved, they're gonna cut the power to the area that is the most, that is the most dangerous. So if you're in the city, just know that your power is gonna be cut off, and they're gonna do that tactically because that's exactly what we have done, going into Afghanistan, going into Syria, and going to these other places. And if we were ever to be invaded, that's exactly what Russia and China would do. They would take out the power grid, so we would be out in the dark. There's no communications going, and people would be hit by surprise. So that's exactly what we could see with this hyperinflation. Now that they're talking about it, this transitory inflation suddenly became, permanent, or not permanent, but now they're confident enough to say that this is not going to go away anytime soon. So they have shifted from regular inflation, from being transitory, to having hyperinflation that is going to be transitory. And the next thing you know, we're going to be like, hey, you promised us it was going to be transitory, but it never happened. And then people are going to be very, very angry. All right, so I want to go ahead and talk about the preps real quick because, I have had several new people join the podcast, especially in the speaker platform. There has been a great number of people who are listening to that now. The numbers are going up, not only on that one, but, on all the other social medias as well. So this information is for the new people who have not listened to the podcast very, very long. All right. So on this particular podcast, I only want to cover two things, or actually two of the 14 categories that I talk about. And the reason that I want to do that is because you have to make sure that you get these first two ready before you start going through water and food and energy and everything else. All right. The first two is alliance and your plan. And the reason you have to do that is because first you need to know who's going to be in your team, who's going to be having your back. You got to know what type of community you're going to be able to make. And these are going to be the people that are going to come to your house, or y'all are going to buy a property where you can actually, bug out to and live together so everybody can thrive through this hyperinflation. And this is exactly what I mean when I say that I want to get survival out of preparedness, because we're not just surviving the one thing that's going to happen. We're going to have to, deal with it for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, maybe a year or two, and then go back to normal. No. What we have to do is that we have to change the way of life, our way of life completely. Tell me that if there was hyperinflation, we wouldn't have to change our life drastically. Yes, because we wouldn't be able to get the exact same things we get from the grocery store now. We would not be able to heat and cool our home the same way that we were used to. There's a bunch of other things that can happen that we would have to give up, and that means that we'll have to change our life drastically. All right, so that's why I want to get survival out of preparedness, because we're transitioning from something that became a hobby to something that is a way of life. All right, we're surviving the initial, crashing the fan scenario to where everything starts to settle down. Everybody around you starts to get used to the idea of the new normal, and then, you continue living. You're not just surviving. You're living. All right, you don't need to hack anything. You just need to know that you need to have your own garden. You have to have your own water. You have to be able to protect your family and to be able to keep them healthy, right? Those are like the core things that you already do on a regular basis. You're just shifting from having the grid in place to not having it at all. So you're getting the survival out of it, and you're living. You're living. You're gonna change your life, and you're gonna live through it. All right. And the reason that you need, your alliance is that way you know exactly how much food you're going to need, how much water you're going to need, how many guns you're going to need, how many bullets you're going to need, right? All these other things. And even if you have family members that come to you after Preppers hit the fan, the things that you have learned and others have learned that make the group, that can be taught to other people within the family, within the group. And then they start to gain this knowledge, and they're going to be able to help the little community that you have created a little bit better. And and the reason that I think you should be family and friends as opposed to other preppers that you may know, that are not family, is because these are the people who are less likely to stab you in the back. Can it happen? Sure, right? But it depends how close you and your family are, is whether or not you can expect somebody stabbing you in the back. And so that is the reason why you want to keep it as tight as possible with the people you trust. And then the other people who come in, they're going to be in the outer circle, and they're going to be able to earn their keep. They're going to be able to earn, getting food, earn getting a drink of water, earn, taking a bath and having clothes made for them and stuff like that. So things will shift. I'm not saying that you need to become a dictator. You have to be as noble as you can, but you also have to understand that you're dealing with human beings that tend to not be very noble themselves. All right, so I want to go ahead and leave this podcast with that. I forgot one thing. Their plan. The plan is very simple, because once you have everybody in place who is going to be in your alliance, then you can make your plan on who's going to take care of the garden, who's going to take care of the livestock, who's going to, take care of clothing, who's going to be washing clothes, who's going to be making the hygiene products such as soap and shampoo and toothpaste and toothbrush and, feminine products or, diapers for babies, being able to take showers. The, other aspects of it would be communications and who's going to train us to not be scared of being in the woods at night and stuff like that. All right, so once you have your alliance ready, you can make the plans. And those two come first, because then everything else falls into place. So make sure you take care of that. And again, I want to leave you with that. I really do hope that you visit the store, MammothSurvivalStore.com. You go in there, you get the book absolutely free, or when your help is with shipping. And, again, the book retails for $24.99. The shipping is $9.99. So you are, in fact, getting it for free. And read it, pass it along, get other people involved, and that's going to be the best thing that you can do for you and your family in your future, especially if we do hit hyperinflation. All right, so again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.